Hey, welcome to Back in the Dave, and I'm your host, David Knight, and that was the Jackson 5, 1974, Dancing Machine. You know, I think about that song. First, I want to say Happy New Year. I hope everybody had a really happy New Year. I know, I put these out on the 15th of the month, so New Year's Day was a couple of weeks ago, and everybody's kind of in the New Year mode and blah, blah, blah. But hey, for me, once again, Happy New Year. Hope everybody had a really, really good Christmas. I hope everybody had a really, really good New Year and a real good holiday season just overall the whole time, I spent Christmas at my sister's house with my family, my kids, my grandkids. My mom was in town. It was nice. It was really nice. Though I couldn't drive still because I'm still dealing with all the PTSD stuff. So while driving has gotten a lot better, I didn't want to take the drive out to Jersey to do it. So we took the train. And let me say, I probably would have been a little bit better off driving. I don't know, but train wasn't a hell of a whole lot better. All the people and stuff, body was just like, it's too much. But hey, it's better than what it was last year. It's better than what it was the year before that and the year before that. So I'm not going to complain a heck of a whole lot. I am happy to be back here. I am so happy to be doing Back in the Dave episodes again. And this episode is super duper duper special because I'm calling this like my hybrid time now. When I first started Back in the Dave in January of 2018, it was all about our generation going back to the 50s and the 60s and 70s and those awesome times for us and our generation, and playing all the music and the movies and then mixing some of my music and what I do as a musician. And I'm going to get back to that starting this episode. But I'm also going to mix in what I did over the last year or so, bring in more of my music, more production stuff, more stuff in the studio, and also just kind of bring more of my friends as guest artists on the show. Other musician friends of mine, producers. If you watch the show over the 2023 season, I had my friend Aaron Brown on. He's a producer and a guitar player. My friend Julio Herrera, who I've known since we were in high school back in the 70s. He's a producer as well as a keyboard player. So I want to do more of that. Last year I was also finally, I had been promising for years, finally did the long drawn out series about my band Chase, which was a 4-part episode that I had really, it was kind of interesting because I had gotten over the whole Chase thing, all that pain and anger and stuff that I didn't know I had in me from when Chase broke up in 1984, which is now, that's now 40 years ago this month. 40 years ago, January, Chase broke up. It's hard to believe that we've been apart for 40 years, but we have been. And there was a lot of pain for me associated with that breakup. Pain that I really wasn't too aware of, and that pain and that anger and that rage that I had because of the breakup, I finally kind of got that out of my body and out of my system May of last year. And that came right in the middle of me doing the podcast episode, the 4-part series of the podcast episode. So like towards the last 2 episodes, like all of my energy to do it and my interest to do it just kind of like tanked out. And I was like, I don't feel like doing this. Chase is done. I don't feel like doing this anymore. Whatever. I'm going to take the songs that we did back in those days. I'll put them out. Hopefully all the fans will like them and enjoy them. Do like a little throwback thing, what I call my chest cooler. We'll do that. And it's done, So that was kind of a long, I kind of wish I never did it now, quite frankly. But I did. I'm glad because the history is there. It's been documented. I've told my kids what happened back in those days, me and their mom. We told them what happened back in those days with the band and everything. But I still have my grandkids coming along. So now they can hear it on the podcast. And so Grandpa ain't got to sit there and tell them about the story one more time because quite frankly, I'm kind of tired of talking about it. But speaking about Grandpa, I'm going to be a grandfather again. So I know some of y'all know who follow me on Facebook and stuff. You guys heard my daughter, my oldest child. She is pregnant, and she's expecting her second child, and we know now it's a little girl, and they're naming her Emery, and she's expected in April, which is the same month and just a day or two away from her older sister's birthday, which is in April. So my first granddaughter, my first grandchild ever, which came from my daughter, she was born on April. She was born in April, and her younger sister is now going to be born in April also, maybe a day or two away from her older sister's birthday. So that's going to be real fun for my daughter and for her fiance. You know, all I got to do is go to the birthday parties, man. Go to bed. Here comes Grandpa. I got the gifts. I got the hugs, the kiss, and the fun. That's going to be it for the kid. You know, they got that whole thing. But hey, it's, you know, I remember those days for me, and I actually missed them. You know, I actually miss them. And it's kind of funny. And I think I've said this times before. I'm rambling. That's what this show is going to be about, because the original back in the day, it was me rambling and playing music. And I'm fixing to do that too. We just heard Dancing Machine. But I now just forgot what I was getting ready to say. Damn it. That's all right. I'm having a good time. It's so good to be back. It's so good to be in a new year. And I feel great. I'm still healing, still got ways to go and stuff, but I feel great in the big picture. So I want to get into some music, and I have some songs I want to play. This is all about 1974. Why? Because 1974 was 40 years ago. We're in 2024. And for me, it's kind of hard to believe that it is, that 1974 was 40 years ago. And as I was saying in the interest of in the beginning of the show, Dancing Machine, that was the Jackson 5. They were still the Jackson 5. They still had 2 years before they'd become the Jacksons. So think about it. 1974, let's see, 1974, I was 12. So that means Michael Jackson turned 16 in August of 1974, because I turned 12 in August of 74. We shared birthday month. We were both born in August, but he was 4 years older than me. So he was 16 in 1974. I mean, like, imagine that. You know, Michael Jackson was 16 in 1974. Dancing Machine was their big hit. And what really struck me about Dancing Machine, it was the first time really that we really heard Michael's voice change in like a big way. You know, it was like, whoa. I remember saying with my friends in the block, in the neighborhood, like, who's singing? That's the Jackson 5, but who's singing? It don't sound like Michael. You know, because we were so used to the little boy Michael from like 1969, 1970, 71, ABC, I Want You Back, Never Can Say Goodbye, those first 4 hits that they talk about so much that Berry Gordy promised them. You know, that was still the little boy Michael Jackson. But now, 1974, this is 16-year-old, mid-teenage Michael Jackson going into his 20s, you know? And so Dancing Machine was that song, and this is when he was getting tired of doing what he called, they were, the doo-wop soul songs at that time, because his head was hearing stuff altogether different, and he wasn't trying to do that anymore, but the family as a whole was still had him on lockdown, because he was still so young. He was still on lockdown. As we all know, it took him years to really break the hell out of the family, and in my humble opinion, stop supporting the family, because really, that was a heavy weight. But like I said before, I'm going to do a special podcast just on Michael Jackson, because I think much of my thoughts on Michael tend to differ from most fans, most people out there. So we'll get to that later. My only point in this is, all I'm saying is that 1974, we heard Dancing Machine. It was the first time that I can recall, and maybe I'm wrong, if I am, someone let me know. You know, put it on the in the comments on the website here, or on Facebook, and let me know, whatever, you know. But to me, it was the first time I could remember hearing Michael Jackson's voice change from the little boy that we knew to the teenager that we knew. And ultimately, his voice really didn't change a hell of a whole lot more from 1974 moving forward. It matured more. again, in my opinion, I'll get into this on the other podcast, but in my opinion, he became a weaker singer the older he got and became more of a vocal stylist and more of a signature singer. When he was a little boy, he was a crooner. He was singing. It was all heart and soul. But from 1974, I'll say fast forward and moving into his solo stuff, especially Off the Wall and Thriller and all that stuff, as we all know, it really became more of a signature sound. It became more of a, I said it a few minutes ago, I can't remember because I'm so excited about being here. It was more of a signature sound, definitely, and it was a lot less heart and soul, and more of just a vocalist. I wouldn't say a vocalist, it's more of a signature sound. This is Michael Jackson's Son's how I sound, and this is what you're going to get across the board from now on moving forward. Same thing happened with his dance style as well, as far as I'm concerned. But that's going to be for another podcast. It's going to be for another episode. So folks who are watching this on YouTube, I am dropping some music in here as well, which I cannot do on YouTube, unfortunately, because YouTube police will come and scour YouTube and they'll say, and they'll flag it and they'll reach out to me or take the site down if I can do to clear this or whatever. So those who are listening to the audio version, you're going to hear all the music and stuff like that, and hopefully they won't stop me there. But this is from my record collection, but it's still copyrighted music and blah, blah, blah. So with that, I move ahead. So 1974 was a really great year. A lot of good music came out in 74. A lot of interesting things happened for me in my life at 74 at age 12. But I want to play a song right quick. And this was, talk about one-hit wonders, okay? This was a real big one-hit wonder song in 1974. And everybody loved it. And it was such a funny song, such a comical song, in my opinion. There's a word for that too, and I'm not thinking very much here today, but that's all right. I'll get there. Oh my goodness, it was a funny song, and it was by a guy by the name of Carlton, I believe. I don't think it was Carlton, another Carl, but his name was Carl. My memory is just bugging out today, but it's whatever. It's a new year, so I'm gonna blame the new year because I have no New Year's resolution, nothing like that. It's all good. But let me play the song. And then we're going to come back and rap about it a little bit later because it was really a funny song. Let me just shut the hell up and play the song. I'm getting back to the old way of how I used to do this. So here we go. Let's play the song. Check this out. It's gonna shock you. Shut up, Dave. Check it out. Here we go. Play the song. Done. All right. There you have it. Kung Fu Fighting by Carl Douglas. That's the brother's name. Carl Douglas. And my sister bought the record. But in 1974, she was 9 years old. But she bought the record. She liked that record. And she also liked that other record. My name is Michael. I got Playground in My Mind. Playground in My Mind. She liked that. She was 9. What you gonna do? She was a youngin'. She was the age of my oldest granddaughter now. She was 9 years old. But Kung Fu Fighting was a really interesting song, right? And it's kind of weird because some of the things he was saying, everybody was there was little Sammy Chong and little Billy Kid. I'm like, dude, man, funky Chinatown. It's almost kind of insulting to our Asian folks. But back in 1974, it was cool. We thought it was cool. I don't think it was cool for our Asian folks, our Asian family in the world here. I don't think it was cool for them. But it came off as cool for so many of us other folks who love the song. I think Carl Douglas doing the song, I think he did it to honor Kung Fu. At least I hope he did, because at that time, you gotta remember, 1974, if memory serves me correctly, and it hasn't been thus far since I started the show, but if it did, I believe Bruce Lee died in 1973. Right? So Kung Fu Fighting song by Carl Douglas came out in 1974. A year later, maybe not even a year, because I think Bruce Lee died in September or October of 73, and this came out, I think, early 74. Whatever. Point being is that Kung Fu and all of the um, Asian, or this, as they said back in those days, Oriental, which is really crazy to say, Chinese movies and films and TV flicks and all that stuff, and it was a karate kung fu craze back in those days. You could say crave also. It was people craving it, but it was a craze back in those days, back in '74. And that song Kung Fu Fighting just kind of blew the hell up, right? I remember I went to camp. Well, all of us, my siblings and I, all four of us, we went to camp in 1974. We went to a day camp. It was called Eastern Queens Day Camp. It was on Hillside Avenue, right on the block from, I believe, from Van Buren High School. For all you folks who knew me back in the day, grew up in the neighborhood and stuff, went to Van Buren. Yo, what up? You know, but we were in camp, and like that song was playing all the time in camp. Like no matter what activity we did at the day camp, it was Eastern Queens Day Camp, which was at the Eastern Queens YMCA, and we were all there, like all the kids from all the different neighborhoods and stuff. We were all there. That was a fun freaking summer, man. That was a really fun summer. Only thing that wasn't so fun that summer is the camp took us out to Jones Beach, right? We went out to Jones Beach that summer, and it was kind of weird because it was this one summer where I don't remember why, but there were jellyfish all over the beach. Like there was jellyfish all over the sand when we got out there. There was jellyfish all in the water. And the counselor said, okay, everybody, get in the water. So everybody went in the water. Folks were getting stung left and right. There was one girl, Wendy, man. She got stung on her right thigh, I believe it was. And then she had this big old sting whelp or whatever on her right thigh. It was really kind of crazy. Though I was a good swimmer back in those days, I was like a little junior lifeguard back in those days. Davy D didn't get in the water because Davy D is not a fool. When Davy D sees other things happen to other people that's not good, Davy D breaks the hell out. And that's what I did. I waded in the water. I put a toe in the water. I put a finger in the water. There's no way I'm getting in the water with a bunch of... That's like saying, oh, there's a bunch of sharks out there. Go swimming. Nah, Dave, the dope fiend. Not doing it. Anyway, that was a really good time that summer. And it's kind of interesting. Like I said, I'm just rambling here today, folks. So, I'll get back into Kung Fu Fighting in a few minutes, maybe. We'll see. But that was a really interesting summer because when I look back on it now in hindsight, because we all know that hindsight is 20/20, see real clear, we go back. I wasn't a musician yet. Like, I wasn't playing instruments like that yet. I would sit at the piano and play Bend by Michael Jackson a little bit here and there. There's another song I used to love playing the piano, The Entertainer from the movie The Sting. I loved playing on the piano back in those days. And these were just some of the songs I would just kind of tinker with on the piano, but I was just playing around. I wasn't giving a rabbit's ass about being a musician or writing songs, nothing like that. I was still literally 74, I was still 2 years away from making a conscious decision to be a musician, to choose an instrument, and to be a songwriter. I was still 2 years away. And if I really want to get real technical about it, it's actually 2.5 years away. And that's kind of, that's very surreal for me. Because when you can look back on your life, right? And I'm sure all of you can think about this on this level. We've been around long enough now where we can look back on certain parts of our lives, certain aspects of our lives, right? Certain times of our lives, and be very conscious about that time and about that era. But not only being very conscious, but how we were at that time, what we were thinking at that time, how we felt at that time, our own inner thoughts, our own inner feelings at that time. And back in those days, though we were very young, there are some folks here who are like 10 years older than me, so I guess they were like 24. Some folks who would be 10 years younger than me as well, they didn't know a hell of a whole lot, but still, those of us who come from that baby boomer era, I was like one of the last boomers. I'm on the last tail end of that because it ended in 1964. Um, my first wife Tracy, she was the last one. She was born in '64, so she was among the last year of the baby boomers. I was still 2 years earlier than her. Um, but for those of us who were born at that time, and for those of us who were, in our teens, in our early teens or mid teens at that time, like we really remember 1974. Like I meet people now who are like in their 40s or who might be in their late 40s, who like born like 1978, 1975, who were born in those years. And I remember those years when they were born. Like I remember those babies back at that time, and those babies are now in their like 40s, like some like in their mid 40s now with their own families and stuff. But I remember when they were first born, that's again, to use the word again, very surreal, just very surreal. Um, I want to play a song that was from my first idol. Yes, I had a first idol before the Commodores, before Lionel Richie. I did have an idol, and uh, and again, I did not know he was my idol at this time because I hadn't really gotten into music yet, But I was so drawn to this artist. I was so drawn to this man, his music, his voice, his sound, everything about him. And in 1974, he had the world's biggest hit, or if not the world's biggest hit, this country's biggest hit. And people were just crazy over him. So let's check out my man, the one and only Mr. Barry White. Can't get enough of your love, babe. Here we go. All right, there you have it. The one and only, the man, Barry White. I missed him. Not missed him. I can't even talk straight now, boy. I'm so amped up that I'm doing this like this. I have missed him for so long. You know, Eh, his music was such a major influence on me when I became a writer. When I began writing music and when I began composing music, he had such an influence on me, that whole orchestration thing. And it's kind of a roll off from my mom because, as you know, my mom was a professional and accomplished opera singer. So myself and my siblings, we all grew up in the theater behind the stages, and there was always orchestras and orchestra pits around and stuff like that. And I would just lean over in a chair and look into the orchestra pit, not having a clue that this was my future, that music and being a musician and composer was my future. I had no clue at that time, right? All I know is that the energy of that music was pulling me in, where other folks, the music was pulling them in to dance and listen to and stuff like that. It was pulling me in on a whole different level. My conscious level, listening to music was a whole different ballgame. So watching my mom on stage perform, watching the live orchestra perform, the first chair cellos, first chair violins, second chair violins, all this stuff mesmerized me. And so when I heard what my mother was doing back in those days, singing live on stage with a live orchestra, and then I heard Barry White doing it on recordings, I knew there was a connection. It's like in '74, like I knew on some subconscious level there was a connection. But I wasn't sure. It was like I get on the bus with my mom or get in the car, we go to the theater and go behind stage, and she's getting ready to go on stage and perform and stuff with everybody else. And I'm watching the orchestra and stuff. I'm hearing these live strings, and then coming home, maybe in the car or on the bus that day, I'd hear Barry White, one of his songs, especially one of the instrumental songs that was just the orchestration. I'm hearing that going like, huh? Like there's something there, And that didn't stop pulling out of me until I began writing in the early '80s. Like when Chase was together, the first that first year that Chase was together, I wrote "Share a Little Love." For those of you who have listened to the Chase series that I did last year, you heard "Share a Little Love." Listen to the strings on that. How I tried to orchestrate the strings. Most things that I do now is orchestration. And what's really funny about that, I remodeled the whole studio here, like the whole studio. And one thing I did, I put this, you can see this server, right? I put that server in here specifically so I can orchestrate, because my main computer could not handle the load that orchestral libraries put on a CPU on a computer. So I got with this company, and they have this thing called Vienna Ensemble, and what that does, that will take huge orchestral libraries, right? Like huge orchestral libraries, and stream them out from that server to my main workstation computer, which is over here. So I have two computers in here. I got servers in here. You know, so this whole studio, because of my interest in orchestration, because of my love for orchestration, and because of the influence of Barry White, and of course the influence of my mother back in 1974 and all those earlier years, you know, this whole studio has literally been revamped so that I can sit in here and orchestrate. And not only so I can sit here and orchestrate with big orchestral libraries, and I mean, I have like the Berlin Orchestra in a library, and you like can't tell it's not a live orchestra. That's how phenomenal these libraries are these days, right? You can't even tell. So when I'll be releasing more music this year, starting February 3rd. We'll talk about that in a few. But there's this one song I did called The Awakening, and I orchestrated the whole thing. It's an instrumental. I orchestrated the whole damn thing right in here. But I also set the room up in here where if I want to, I can bring in a small string ensemble, like an easy 10, 15 people I can bring in here, and bring microphones into the other rooms, the living room and my wife's art studio, which, don't tell her that, but I can put like a small orchestra between the living room and in her art studio, and run microphones out there and literally record a small ensemble of strings in here, along with the library strings of the Berlin Orchestra that I have in here as well. But all that was the influence that I had back in those days. So this whole room has been literally updated and remodeled, which we'll do a studio tour, because what you see behind me is nothing compared to what I see in front of me. What I see in front of me is, it's like Command Central over here. But we'll do a studio tour on one of the upcoming episodes, right? And you'll see. And so that was Barry White, Can't Get Enough. And I've told the story before, but I'll tell it again. One of my teachers in 1974, Mr. Gelb, Mr. Larry Gelb, I don't know if he's still here with us on the earth or not, but he was a young man at the time. He was probably in his 30s at the time. And he, along with my teacher, Mrs. Hasher, Mrs. Eleanor Hasher, who have still been in touch with since 1974, and I think even the year earlier. We've been in touch for all these years, for over 40 years ago. What am I saying? I'm saying 1974 was 40 years ago. Oh, let's rewind the tape for a minute. 1974 was 50 years ago. Damn. I screwed that one up, but fine, we get it. 50 years ago. So I was in elementary school in 1974. Wow. Okay, so we got that one cleared up. I think we're a half hour into the show. That just tells you how messed up my brain is right now. I'm off the cuff having fun, but it's good. I'm enjoying. So 50 years ago, right? So everything that I said is not 40, it's 50 years ago. So I'm still in touch with Mrs. Hasher for over 50 years now, right? And we've been planning. So Mrs. Hasher, if you listen, I know we've been planning to have dinner, to get together again. And once again, we dropped the ball on that. So we'll have to reconnect so that we can have our dinner and get together and have dinner again. I'm so looking forward to that. I went to a special school. I went to a special ed school for I think 5 years or maybe 6 years back in the 70s. And Mrs. Hasher was we had very small classes, and she was my teacher, I believe, for 2 or 3 out of those 5 years that I was in that school. So it was Mrs. Hasher and Mrs. Streitman, Mrs. Hasher, Mr. Gelb, and I believe Mrs. Hasher and Mrs. Phyllis. I forgot her last name, but I see her too. I don't remember how it went down, but you know, those were such beautiful days. But getting back to it, so when it was the year that it was Mrs. Hasher and Mr. Gelb, Mr. Gelb, he knew how much I loved Barry White. And he actually went out, I told the story in another podcast, I think the Barry White podcast, but I'll tell it again right quick. I'll make it short. Too late. But he went out and he actually bought me the Can't Get Enough album, Barry White's, because he loved Barry White also. And he knew how much I loved Barry White. And he bought me the album, Can't Get Enough. And I could not get home quick enough to put that album on my turntable and play it in my house. I was so happy. I was so elated. And I wish I knew if whether he was still with us or not. I know my other classmates, they searched him out on Facebook. We haven't found him. I searched him out relatively recently. He hasn't come up, so I don't know the status of his life at the moment. But I can just tell you that he was a blessing for me, not because he bought the album, but he was just a beautiful man towards me as a teacher, as Mrs. Hasher was. How blessed was I as a child, to have such great teachers. Just starting with Mrs. Hasher and Mr. Gelb and moving forward throughout high school. It was crazy, and throughout college as well. Like all of them. The teachers I had in my school career for those years, they were all just phenomenal. But Mrs. Hasher is the only one that I'm still in touch with now, and Mrs. Streitman in present day. Mrs. Streitman and Mrs. Hasher, the only ones I'm in touch with. But I brought that record home and played that record to death and wore new grooves into that damn record, right? Can't Get Enough, the whole album. I also had my first, last, everything was in the album as well too, right? And my little brother Mark and I, and this was 2 years before he was killed, but we got into a fight, which was for he and I, getting into a fight was an everyday thing. If it wasn't an argument, it was a fight. It wasn't a fight, it was an argument. But he was very vindictive, and what he would do when we got into a fight, and sometimes even an argument, he would break something of mine. He would either break one of my rockets, he'd stomp on it. He would break one of my gas-powered planes. He would break one of my AFX cars, or take it and tear the whole thing up and throw the piece all over the place. I mean, he was crazy, But I love him and I miss him so. But he took the album and broke the album. And that's when I jumped on his back and beat that ass as much as I could. Oh my God. Yeah. I beat the walking about shit out of that boy. I was like, yo, man, like you broke my Barry White album that Mr. Gelb gave me. You out of your freaking mind? And I beat him up. I beat him up until he cried. And I didn't feel bad about it then, and I don't feel bad about it now. And people say, well, he's gone now. He's dead now. I don't care. Dude, I'm sorry. I had no clue what was going to happen in his life and to his life at that time. All I know is that you broke my Barry White Can't Get Enough gift album that I got from Mr. Gelb, and you deserve that ass whipping. So that's what I did. I beat the crap out of him. And I got in trouble, of course, especially from my dad. I got in big trouble. He's your little brother and you don't hit him, la, 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 la. But he broke my arm. We don't care, David. He's younger than you. You should know better. Maybe he should know better. He was only a year younger than me. Like, I was only a year younger than my older brother. What are you talking about? He was 11. He knew better at 11 years old. Don't break my damn album. Beat that ass. Anyway, so I went back to school and I told Mr. Gelb and Mrs. Hasher what happened, that my brother Mark broke my album. And Mr. Gelb came in the next day and gave me his album, his Bright White album. And I was just so happy. I can't say it blew my mind and all that kind of stuff. It does that for me now. That back then, I was just so happy that he gave me another album because I love the album so damn much, right? I was just so really happy about that. He gave me an album. I didn't think about the fact that what he gave me was his personal album. He had bought two. He bought one for me, and he bought one for himself. And when Mark broke mine, and then Mr. Gelb gave me his, I never understood at 12 years old the significance of what he did. First, buying me the album he didn't have to do. And then second, giving me his personal copy once Mark destroyed mine. That's a teacher. Forget that. That's a human being. You see, that's a human being. And that to me, 50 years later, still speaks volumes to me. At the age of 61 that I am now, what he did at age 12 still speaks volumes to me. You know, to take that type of concern, to take that kind of focus on a child in your classroom, and you're a teacher, that's teaching. And that's what Mrs. Hasher, Mr. Gelb, and Mrs. Streitman, that's what they did back in those days. That's what they did. And they influenced our whole class so much. And I guess I'm getting off topic a little bit because every time I think about this time and this era in my life, it's such a touching part of my life because they influenced all of us in that class so much. One of my classmates at that time, Susan, they influenced her so much that she became a teacher. You know, to this very day, she's a teacher. You know, so it's really cool. It's really cool. And when humans are humans, it's just awesome, right? It's just awesome. So let me get off my soapbox for a minute because I want to play some more. I want to play some more music. There was a song that came out in '74 that is on my playlist. It was one of the first songs I put on my playlist. I never bought the record back in those days, right? But whenever the song came on the radio, I loved it. It was a duet between the Spinners and Dionne Warwick. And I always wasn't a big Dionne Warwick fan at all. I loved her voice, and I loved the songs, but she wasn't one of those artists that I would go out and, buy her music right away. A matter of fact, the only song I have of hers was that's what Friends Are For, 1986. All of her music, all the songs that she did back in the 60s and 70s, which I loved. I never bought the records because in my mind at that time, that's grown-up music. I'm a kid. That's grown-up music. But she had a really big hit with the Spinners at that time in '74, a song called Then Came You. All right. Dionne Warwick and the Spinners, Then Came You. Listen to that again. Listen to the drums. The drums are so simplistic, so laid back, so like, when I heard that song, when I became a writer and a musician, I went back and played that song, and I was like, wow, the drums on here are really like nothing. But yet there's still, production-wise, everything that the song needed. And so many producers over the years get so caught up in all this stuff, big production, this, and that, those kind of stuff, and really it's whatever the song needs. And that song did not need a whole bunch of, drums and stuff. It just had those few drum rolls, the hi-hat, and the kick, and that was pretty much it. The kick and the hi-hat there may have been a snare drum every now and then. I don't even recall, but I know the toms, the drum rolls, and that was pretty much it for the song. Everything else was just done musically, and the vocals, of course, Dionne Warwick and the Spinners, vocals were killer. Can't deny that. I think I might be all talked out. Imagine that. I'm just rambling on. I'm just enjoying just going back 50 years to 1974 and when I was 12 years old and just some of the times of my life at that time, just kind of thinking about it because we're in 2024 now and 50 years later, it's kind of once again to use the word kind of surreal. August of this year, I will now be 62. In August of 74, as I said, I was 12. And it's like people who, and I think many of you might be able to understand this, people who are in our age group now, who are 60 plus, I'm going to say, though those folks who hit 40, they think they call themselves old, I laugh at them. Folks who are in their 50s, they call themselves old, I laugh at them. Folks who are in their 60s, they call themselves old, I laugh at them. But a lot of folks who are in their 60s, they'll say, oh, I have more life behind me than what I have ahead of me, which means they're acknowledging that their life is coming to an end. I don't subscribe to that. I feel there's more life ahead of me, and there was plenty of life behind me. And I feel that there's more life ahead of me simply because whether I transition out over the next 30 years or less or more or give or take in the physical body, that's life. And once I transition out of this body and I'm back in energy and back in spirit and I'm still conscious, that's still life. I'm still living. So I don't have more life behind me than what I have in front of me. There are different types of life. It's like air. It's like air. If I were to say, okay, there's air in this room that I'm breathing, right? And it's just the air. Okay, but if I were to come over here and use this and put essential oil in there, and let's say I put a lemon balm essential oil in there and it gives the scent of lemon. I now smell lemon in the air. It's the same air. It's just different. I'm still breathing the same air. It just has a lemon aroma. So it's the same air. So the only difference between being here on the planet in a lower vibrating energy body that I'm in now versus leaving this body and in a higher vibrating energy level at that point, and I'm still conscious. I'm conscious in my body. I'm conscious out in energy. It's still life. It's just different. And no one says, and no one who has come back from so-called death, which I don't believe in, no one has said that when we're out of these bodies that life and death is so horrible. No one has said that. Not at all. Everybody's assuming that death and once we're out of these bodies, that life is horrible because we're not in our bodies no more. But at the end of the day, when you think about it, everybody bitches and complains about how hard physical life is. So my message is going to be, in closing this episode, my message is going to be is stop bitching. Life is not hard. Life is not hard. Human beings, we've made life hard. We've made life difficult. That's a human construct. That is not a natural construct. Let me put it this way. How we're living life and how we have constructed life as we know it now is normal, but it is not natural. And therein lies the difference. We have learned through our frontal lobes in our brain, we have learned how to navigate every so-called horrible situation. So if there's a fire, we know how to get away from fire. If there's an earthquake, we know how to get away from an earthquake and how to survive through earthquakes. If there is a snow blizzard, we know our way through snow blizzards. If a wild animal is coming at us, we have tools and skills and stuff to deal with them too, and unfortunately put them down if it came down to that. The problem is that we build buildings, skyscrapers and towers and homes on fault lines where earthquakes occur. Okay? We go into the woods unprepared, and you're dealing with wolves or bears or porcupine or whatever is in that can jack you up. We know better, right? We go into the water knowing that there's other life in the water that can do damage to us, but we go in the water unprotected. We go into the snow, into a blizzard, unprepared. We've built things to kill us and all kind of stuff. So it's not life, okay? In other words, life is not happening to us. If we all stood still, life would not be happening. We're happening to life. We are happening to life. Life is not happening to us. We're happening to life. So we need to stop complaining and shut the hell up when it comes to how hard life is. We've made it this hard. We've made it this difficult. So if we made it this hard and this difficult, we can undo it. Unfortunately, we have no desire to do that. We all talk a good game about it, but nobody has a real desire to do that. Why? One, because there's a group of people who benefit from it. And when you go down from that group of people that benefit from it, everybody else on their lower levels, they benefit from it too. I got mine. You get yours. I got my car. I got my iPhone. I got my house. I got my condo. I got my Learjet. I got this. I got my land. I got this. We're so busy getting everything and hoarding everything for our individual families, and all we give a flying who shot Mary Lou about are our families. Oh, my children, my grandchildren, my family, my family, my family, my family. Well, the hell with the other family, my family. We have made life difficult. If we were to live life, and had we been living life for the past 500 years, according to how nature and energy has mapped out life, life would be bliss. Because we would be on a different level as human beings. We would be on a different level of consciousness. We'd be on a different level of vibration. And so animals in the woods or animals in the water, our energy would be permeating out on such a high level, they would just leave us the hell alone. They wouldn't even think, they pretty much do that anyway. Even if you're vibrating on a low level, they pretty much leave us alone. But we don't leave them alone. We go up in there looking to jack them up. Take their tusk, take their fur, take their teeth, take their babies, take their lives, take their skin, eat them. So clearly, life as we are living it now is a human construct. It is normal. It is not natural. I think if we all maybe use 2024 and maybe give ourselves towards thinking about making life more natural as opposed to normal, there may be some changes. There may be some individual changes, and maybe that'll permeate out to other people and they have individual changes. Maybe that'll permeate out to other people and they'll have individual changes. And maybe that'll begin to tidal wave into more change. And then maybe Russia and Ukraine will really seriously just stop fighting, because You can't talk about how much you value life and then you shoot somebody in the heart, or you drop a bomb on their building. Or maybe Israel and Hamas will stop the bullshit. And whatever's going on there, because I'm not going to pretend to know. I'm just not. I don't know. It seems like Israel's trying to take more land from Palestine when Hamas got going. I really don't know. I really don't care. Because to me, there's nothing that the Palestinians have done or Hamas that justifies them fighting or that justifies Israel doing what it's doing. To me, there's just no justification for taking lives and hurting life and hurting people, hurting animals. There's just no justification. And for those folks who say, well, there's no God because how could he let this happen? Well, here's the thing. If there's no such thing as death, if all there is life, it means that when we close our eyes and transition out of these physical bodies, and we are no longer in our biological bodies, and we're back in full energy, spirit, whatsoever you want to call it, and we're still alive, why would a God or an entity care if you kill somebody? Why does it matter? Because that entity that we call God is going to say, hey, it don't matter. You're going to leave that body and come back to your original form, which is nothing but energy, conscious, awake, aware, alive, still living, having fun, enjoying life back in spirit, consciously, can still see, can still hear. So what do I care if you drop a bomb on Japan? What do I care if some dude poisons thousands of people in some camp out and down in Texas? What do I care if another group of people enslave another group of people for 400 some odd years or however long it was? What does it matter? We're all here in this physical world to have experiences. It doesn't matter what those experiences are. If that experience takes your physical life, whoop-de-doo. Welcome back. You want to go back down there? Yes or no? No. All right, well, hang out here. So, everybody has these thoughts, beliefs, perceptions, all that kind of fun stuff. I try not to get caught up in that stuff. I really try not to. I just wish, because to me, it's such a great plan. It's like if it's only life, and if we're always living, whether we're living in the physical world or whether we're living back in energy or spirit, whatever you want to call that side of life, we're still alive. We're still living. We're still conscious, right? So at the end of the day, isn't it such a great deal that if we got our act together here on earth and just enjoyed life, just enjoyed being with people, just enjoyed music and art and the ocean and creating and all the technology and just everybody just having fun, everybody, not just a few select people, everybody having fun, everybody enjoying, everybody sharing each other's cultures, everybody sharing each other's creations, everybody traveling to everybody's different countries and different land spots and just having a good time. And damn, imagine if we did that and then we transitioned out of these bodies and back into spirit or back into energy, again, whatever your beliefs are. Imagine we did that and had a ball here and then transitioned back into that and still living on and having a good time. I mean, come on, it's the best freaking deal in town, but guess what? We're screwing it up. We're simply screwing it up because, oh, he's gay. I can't deal with that. Oh, he's Chinese. I can't deal with that. Oh, she's a transvestite. I can't deal with that. Oh, she's poor. This uneducated. Uh, really? Such superficial bullshit that we're using against each other every day. And it wasn't always that way. We've been against each other now for maybe about 10,000 years. Prior to that, it wasn't that way. So just think about that. I'm just saying, there's more life ahead of me at soon to be age 62 than what there was behind me. And I have no plans on transitioning out anytime soon. I do everything in my power to make sure that doesn't happen. I do. So I hope all of you are doing the same. And I hope you guys have an awesome, awesome, awesome sauce 2024. Don't let the presidential crap drive you nuts. And be grateful for who you are. Be grateful for how you hear, how you think, how you feel. Just work at being grateful. I work at that all the time because I have more than enough reasons to be not grateful for anything. But I work at being grateful as much as I possibly can. I am grateful for Mrs. Hasher. I am grateful for Mr. Gelb. I am grateful for those 12 years that I spent with my little brother. I'm grateful for my parents, my children, my musicians, my music, my talent, this studio, my wife, my grandchildren, the trees, the birds. I'm just so grateful for as much as I can be. That opens the heart a lot. In 2024, no New Year resolution. The hell with that crap. Let's just take one step at a time to open our hearts. That's all. One step at a time to open our hearts and share that with somebody else through experiences. That's all. I think I'm going to work on that, or be conscious or be aware of that, I'm going to say, in 2024. And I hope you will too. All right. I got one more song. Before we go to that, I want to say February 3rd, be on the lookout. This is a music year for me, the Doc, the Hood, the Rock. A music year. And the first song we're going to release is Take It Higher. This is the last song that Clayton and I did together before he passed away in June of 2020. I want to get in there. This is the last one that he and I did together, Take It Higher. Dance tune, instrumental, like a Barry White, instrumental, brass construction, instrumental, chant. And this song is all about taking your life higher. Take It Higher is about taking your life higher and using that song. If you're on a treadmill, if you're jogging, if you're working on something, and whatever you're doing when you're listening to music and Take It Higher comes on, that song is for you. We wrote that song for you to inspire you, to energize you, to get up and dance if you want to, or just scream and shout, take it higher, whatever, you'll see. But that drops on February 3rd. And so does the video for the song as well. The video premiere and the song are both dropping on February 3rd. So be on the lookout for that. And then there's going to be 4 songs, total of 4 songs this year, maybe a 5th one. I'm thinking about putting out a Chase song at some point throughout the year. I don't know yet. I'm going to see. But definitely 4 songs. Take It Higher, Gentle, which is just a piano concerto, just me playing the piano. It's really kind of a cool song. Meditate on it, whatever. There's Take It Higher, Gentle, The Awakening, another instrumental, which it's going to be orchestrated, just orchestration, dance tune, like Barry White. That song, The Awakening, Let's Wake Up. And then there's Abstract. Abstract is so cool because you ever go to like a juice bar or something and there's just music playing in the background, like just kind of like anything like electronica type music just playing with all types of drums and percussions and synthesizer sounds and stuff like that. That's Abstract. Abstract is crazy but I loved recording it because it just gave me so much freedom to do whatever I wanted to do with drums and bass and musician and keyboards and synthesizers and sounds and sound design and stuff like that. So Abstract's going to be out later on in the year. So those are going to be the 4 songs, starting with Take It Higher. That'll be February 3rd, the song and the video premiere on YouTube and probably at my website and on Facebook. Okay, so look out. We're going to start putting more and more things and ramping up engagement with all of you. There'll be a special podcast episode release for Take It Higher as well. So look out for that. That's coming after this podcast in a few weeks. So hang tight for that. And I think that's about all I got. I just rambled on for, I guess, maybe about an hour now. I just rambled on, all right? Let's put it into it. I have one more song I want to do. And I chose this song because 1974 and 2024, that's a 50-year span that we can all look back on. So I chose a very specific song just for a little bit of reflection over the past 50 years. Barbra Streisand. She did a song back in 74 called The Way We Were. Let's listen to that for a minute as we close out and think about the way we were. Just briefly, let's not get stuck in the past, because trust me, I've had that experience. It ain't a good one. Let's just briefly go back and remember the way we were in 1974. All right? So, as my grandmother would say, keep on living, night out. If you enjoyed this episode, take a moment and leave a 5-star comment. I'd really appreciate it, and it seriously helps others find the show. Thank you for listening. I know you have a ton of other things on your plate that you could be doing and maybe you should be doing, but you took a moment to hang out with me, and I'm so, so grateful. So until next time, as my grandmother would say, keep on living, night out.